Hey, welcome back to episode 15 of my Dodge Radiator rebuild project. That truck's sitting right behind me here. It's been a couple of weeks since I updated you. This is going to be a quick update because I didn't get a lot done this last little bit. It started out with I tweaked my shoulder pretty good when I was putting the transmission in this thing. And so I hit the chiropractor and took a few days off to let it heal up, and it's feeling a lot better now. Also, the weather's gotten a lot better. We're at 70 degrees now, so I've been tooling around town my old 56 and kind of enjoying the weather and not spending a lot of time in the garage. One of the things I did this week was I finally broke down and bought a toolbox. I've been building cars in this garage since 1986. The first few years, of course, were with my father. He had a couple of hot rods that we would work out here on. My very first car was a 59 Volkswagen Bug that I bought in 88. In this garage, we worked on it. And then we built countless cars over the last 30 years. But I've never bought a toolbox. I had a couple of old toolboxes my dad left me here, and then I would just pile tools in the corner. I never really kept a clean garage. It's always been kind of messy with paraphernalia and extra car parts on all the walls. But I decided that I got tired of rummaging through the old toolbox looking for sizes and wanted to buy a tool cart, a mechanics cart, something that you can roll around and push out if you want to work on something. So I went to the Snap-on truck and I bought the mechanics cart that they sell there. It was around $1,250 or something like that. I was worried that it would get stolen, so I got my hands on some U.S. General stickers and badges and took off the Snap-on stuff and put on the cheaper name brand, just so people wouldn't be tempted to take it. Then I had to doll it up by adding some bolts here and there to make it look like it came from maybe Harbor Freight. This is definitely not the Harbor Freight tool cart that was on sale last weekend for $169. It's like $40 off. Definitely the more expensive Snap-on. So yeah, I love it. I spent a day or two putting tools in it, and now I can go right to a drawer. I mean, I had all my tools in drawers over here, but traipsing all the way across the garage to find them was kind of getting on my nerves. And then I noticed they had a tray here. This you can work on carburetors or projects or whatever. I noticed that Harbor Freight Snap-on had some other colors. I kind of like the idea of just grabbing a different color for the tool cart. Yeah, pretty cool. Lockable little cart. I can push it around now. We can push it into the other room if I'm working on the Dodge Raider. I can push it out here when we get back to working on this 36 Ford. Yeah, I highly recommend it. Get out to your Snap-on truck and put it on the old credit card and pay it off over the next 5 years. But I have gotten a few things done. Worked on the windshield wiper mechanism and arms and soaked them in the carburetor oil for a while, and they cleaned up real nice, took all the rust off. The carburetor linkage is going to work fine. So I got online and ordered a few parts. The nuts that I cut off last week, or last episode, I ordered a few odds and ends for those wipers from a company out of London who is drop shipping out of Japan, so I should have those parts here within the next week or so. Okay, back to this windshield wiper arm. I've been soaking this in Chem Dip carburetor cleaner. It's kind of an aggressive thin oil that eats away at rust and whatever, and it works really good now. I mean, it was completely frozen when I took it off the car, and now it spins really freely. So I'll soak this for another day or two, and then put it back in the car. It'll be fine. Next, I have to find a couple of nuts to replace the ones I cut off. But yeah, it's coming. It just removed all that rusty gunk out of that. You can see there it spins freely. In fact, this one I'll probably soak too, even though it's pretty free itself. Yeah, I'm really impressed with this stuff. I use this for anything that's really rusty or that's gunked out. Just dip it, put it in that tray and dip it into the chem dip and leave it for a day or two. And then I spent some time working on the radiator. I cleaned up the radiator. I'm going to repaint it. And the bracket that holds the radiator to the truck was cracked and broke. So I resoldered that, welded it back to the radiator. Cleaned up a few odds and ends, some of the tin, kind of the fan shroud, a few things that I'm going to paint when I paint the rest of the truck here. Okay, I'm fiddling with this radiator. Cleaning it up, I'm going to paint it. I was fixing some of the bent tabs in here, hoping to get some more use out of it. It is kind of an old radiator, but I think it's still fine to use for now. One of the side brackets is loose, broke off these soldered elbows here. So I'm just going to heat this up and put some more solder on it, see if we can't fix this. Alright, we'll see if that holds. It's going to be bolted to the frame, so hopefully there isn't going to be a lot of stress on it, but it should hold. Spent a little bit of time prepping the cowl and the surround around the front windshield, sanded off the paint, and paid some attention to the rock chips and divots. A lot of them were rusted. They had little pinholes down to the metal from rocks. You know, the paint's chipped off, and the exposed metal is rusted a little bit. So what you want to do is sand it down, sand all that off, and I put a little bit of filler over some of the divots, and spent a couple of days out here doing some sanding. So I just finished that tonight, so I'll be ready to put some primer on it tomorrow and hopefully have it painted and done by the end of the week. bit of body work here. Starting the process of sanding this surround. Now a little bit of wiles here and there I'm going to work on with a hammer and dolly. It's kind of tedious work. I don't know how much I'll film of it because it's kind of time consuming and tedious, but I'll try to give you the gist of what we're up to. Okay, you can see here that all I'm really doing is sanding down the paint down to the primer, even past the primer on some of this. I'm not going to show too much of the prep work here because there's plenty of painting tutorials on YouTube if you want to learn how to paint a car. It's kind of tedious. You're just sanding and making everything smooth, and then you're going to have to deal with these pot marks, these rock chips. And normally you would sand this all the way down to metal, but I think I'm just going to smooth it all out and then use some glaze putty to fill them in. And then it should work fine. The other thing I got to deal with is we got some stress cracks in this opening for the windshield wiper pivot. You can see right here that the metal is fatigued and cracked all the way up here. So I'm going to go ahead and grind all the paint off of that and get out the welder. We'll weld that shut again and smooth it out, sand it down. It'll be fine once we get it done. So after taking off the paint around this wiper pivot hole, you can see several stress cracks all the way around that, which is kind of interesting. Apparently it's a water trap and it got a little bit rusty, and then the torque from that wiper just stressed out the metal, and I've got about 4 or 5 cracks there I'm going to weld up. Kind of interesting. This side over here seems to be fine. I'll take a closer look at it, but I don't see any metal fatigue on this side. So we're just going to spot weld one at a time all the way around here. We got about 5 different cracks leading off of that for some reason. And you don't want it to get too hot so it warps any of the metal. So just one at a time, let it cool, and go back and do it again. We're going to weld the entire seam. Each one of those cracks will weld it completely full, and then we'll grind it down. Okay, you can see here how we welded all the cracks shut, and now I'm going to grab the grinder and we will grind off the welds and make them smooth, and that should correct the problem. On a side note, of course, I close my eyes before I pull the trigger each time. You don't want to burn your retinas when you're welding. So after welding and grinding, we now have all the cracks sealed up, fixed. I'll just do a little bit more prep work on the metal and then put a little body filler on it, sand it out to where it's smooth. So we're one step closer to having this front cowl done. Alright, I sanded down the cowl and I ground out all the rock chips, all the rusty little spots that the rock chips created. So now I'm going to use some wax and grease remover, get all the dust off, and then we'll start putting down a little bit of body filler in each one of those little divots, a little skim coat, and we'll sand it next. We have all the dings and rock chips fixed, have sanded down and put some body filler in some of the divots here and there. So it's really smooth now and ready to have some primer applied to it. So I will probably shoot primer tomorrow and then paint within the next couple of days depending on the weather. Aside from that, I haven't spent a whole lot of time out here. I ordered a few other parts, and that's going to be about it for this week's update. Hopefully I'll get back out here over the next few days after we get it painted and start putting the interior parts back into this truck. But that's it. Check back next time. Thanks. Bye.